You don't go to a networking event thinking you're going to sell anything. You're going to go up when you have that first conversation with somebody and you're letting them talk and talking about themselves. You say, okay, you know what? How can I refer you? How can I be your best salesperson?
Hello, 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 and welcome back to the My Future Business Show. It's Rick Nusky. It is wonderful to be back with you again. I love being the host, and I'd like to take that second of pause just to say thank you very much for joining us on the show today. I've been seeing all of the feedback across different networks that we're found on, and it's just wonderful to read all of your great feedback. Thank you very much for all of your support. Now, on today's show, I have the pleasure of welcoming veteran, author, public speaker, and networking expert, Mr. Michael A. Forman. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Absolute pleasure to have you here. Now, Michael, you and I, we're going to be talking about your book, Networking Unleashed, Mastering the Art of Professional Networking and How to Make Communication with Prospective Clients More Profitable. Now, that was a mouthful.
Yes, it was.
So I know that unless things have changed, you're calling in from Cummings, Georgia. Is that right?
That's where Cumming, Georgia, right here in the States. And it's like I said before, it's really hot.
It's kind of warm at the moment. What do you love about the
Yeah.
place apart from the wonderful heat?
Well, I originally come from New York,
Right.
and New York, it's very fast paced. You really don't get to know the individual, whomever you're speaking with, networking with, anything like that. But down here in Georgia, it's a little slower. I get to spend a little more time with my prospective clients or teaching everybody what it's really like to know somebody and communicate with them.
So there seems to be a contrast of environments, doesn't there? Like New York seems to be hustle and bustle for the most part, whereas this is very much relationships area.
Yeah, yeah. Now I made it a relationships area up in New York
Right.
because that was my personal preference.
Hmm.
But it's a lot easier down here.
Well, that's definitely something we're going to be talking a lot about is obviously networking, but I'd love to talk a little bit about you, get a bit of a feel. I think it gives great context to for the listener, if you don't mind. So tell me, if somebody was to visit you there, what are some of the local landmarks that that you'd send them to have a look at?
Well, I'm really about 30 miles north of Atlanta,
Right.
and Atlanta is just bustling with things to see. But, we have something called Stone Mountain where you can see a different mural on etched into a wall of rock. We have an aquarium. We have a botanical garden.
Beautiful.
We have hills. We have flatlands. We have forests. It's really just a little bit of
Bit
everything.
of everything. I love that. Absolutely love it. Now, do
Yeah.
you give yourself time for any hobbies, or do you enjoy sports?
Well, I was a baseball coach for about 16 years. I became an umpire for another 3 years because I love baseball. But I try to golf as much as I can and spend the rest of the time with my family.
I tell you what, every time I talk about golf, I say, if you want your lawn cord, come and see me. I can help you out. Now, tell us a little bit about your experience as a baseball coach, because that takes some commitment, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And really, both my boys were in it at the same time at different levels. So I managed each of their teams almost at the same time.
Aha.
And it makes a difference when, because I was the type of coach. Now little league is different from the the all stars and travel and things like that, and i
Yeah.
i managed both the travel ball and the all-star teams also. But in the little league environment, you have to realize that everybody, let's say, makes the playoffs, so you give every child a chance to bat and to bat first, to bat second. You always hear about the guys who are putting them in right field, the lesser known players, I'll say,
Yes. Yep.
um, and don't really get them to play. And one year, my older son was on, I think, a 10-year-old team, and I took about a quarter of the children that nobody else wanted. Nobody else wanted. And that's where I think coaching comes in and helping them and nurturing them. And sure enough, we went all the way to win the championship.
Fantastic.
And it was all because, I had a pitcher who was on, I forgot the name of the team, but they were in first place. And at the time, we were in last place. And he came to me and said, Coach, how can I get on your team?
Oh,
I, I said, Well, you're in first place. Why would you want to switch? He goes, Yeah, it's not so much fun on that team, and your team is having a lot of fun.
it's very interesting that you say that, Michael. My two boys, they enjoy basketball and they play for the local, district basketball, so they're fairly into it. But I always talk to them about, there's two sides of grace: winning gracefully and losing gracefully. Now, I know it's wonderful to win, but what can you teach your boys from losing a game?
Absolutely. Well, I teach them. Well, also, what I tell them is, look, they didn't pay any more or any less than you to play in this league. They paid the same amount of
Same.
money.
Yep.
So don't you think they deserve at least to have that sense of accomplishment, teamwork, and why should they be ostracized? So, when the playoffs came, I took my best nine and put them on the field. But for the 18 games before it, I didn't. I mixed and matched
That's
because
fantastic.
that really didn't matter.
Yeah, that's excellent. Now I know that beyond the baseball coaching, you were an ASA umpire. Is how
Yes.
much different of an experience was that for you, Michael?
It was definitely different, because as a manager, I looked at them one way. When I became the umpire, the umpire really is in control of the game, and hot heads, and you had to calm the parents down, calm children down. You had to tell them to stay within the rules of the game.
Oh yeah.
Um, and you had to know when to just give them a warning or just really throw them out. But I pride myself on being that type of intermediary. Get between the two managers, talk it out, and I didn't have to eject anybody. We got back to playing,
Oh, I love
so I
that.
felt really good about that.
And another thing that I find that sports, along with, I guess, serving your country, which we're going to touch on shortly, it gives you a little bit, in fact, probably a lot of discipline. Tell me a little bit about how important discipline is for your boys.
Well, discipline really is the crux of the problem, because if you are disciplined as a batter,
Hmm.
disciplined as an outfielder, disciplined as an infielder, you have to rely on your training. Okay. So if you follow your discipline, if you're disciplined in, okay, if I'm a batter and I'm swinging, I have to swing like this, because if I swing wildly, I'm never going to hit it. If I'm a fielder, I know I have to get set when the pitch is about ready to pitch, get ready on the balls of my feet, and put my glove down to the ground. And, these are all things that go through your head. And you have to be disciplined in order to continue to do that, whether you're up by 12, down by 12, or anything else like that.
Yeah, it's incredible, and I love the fact that you're almost suggesting that they should take on a little bit of flexibility in terms of how they play the game. Now, if I was to visit you, which I'd love to do one day, what sort of foods do you have in the local area, and what sort of cuisine, let's call it, do you enjoy?
Well, we have a little bit of everything. Um, we really do. I have my favorite Chinese food place, my favorite Mexican place, my favorite burger
I'm
place.
sold
You
already.
know, yeah, and all of it is. I'm a foodie, so it's absolutely delicious. If it's really not that good, then I'm not going back.
Yep.
But I try everything once. But there's a lot of uh, for the Chinese food. There's different levels of Chinese food. You can have the feeling. You can go into a restaurant and have the feeling of the Chinese food, or like a fast food Chinese place.
Yep. Love it.
So it really goes all out. But the food is absolutely delicious. But I have to tell you, coming from New York,
Haha.
it doesn't hold a candle to the food in New York.
Especially the pizzas, I'm sure and certain.
Ha- Well, I'm a former pizza place owner,
Oh.
pizza and restaurant owner, so I am kind of bit of a stuck-up snob when it comes to pizza. Okay.
I tell you what, you don't, you know, there many, many times, not only when I've been to the States, but many times on the show, Michael, I've actually had arguments about the quality of pizzas in New York. You don't want to mess around with the people who make pizza in New York, that's for sure and certain.
The only place that really comes close is Chicago.
Ah, yes.
Okay, Chicago comes the closest they can, but I've been all over the states. I've been to about 40 of the 50 United States.
Yep.
I've been to about seven different countries,
Mm.
and still there's no place like New York, no food like New York.
Thank you very much for the feedback and a little bit of context of your life. I think that's really what makes this show stand out from many others. Now, I'd love to, if you could, so you grew up in New York, was that correct?
Yes, I grew up in New York.
Now, tell me a little bit about what life was like as a kid growing up. You know, like things like when I was growing up, the only rule that we had was to stay out of the house and only be home after the streetlights came on. Did you have any of that?
No, that was exactly the rules that I grew up on.
Ah,
My mother, I didn't have a father. I grew up with my mother
fair enough.
and my two brothers.
Yep,
And after school, she let us out of the house, and we did not come back until like it dawned 6 o'clock
I love it.
or the street lights came on.
Yep,
And we knew that, listen, it was time for dinner because if you didn't make it back home for dinner, you didn't eat.
that's it.
Okay. There was none of this mollycoddling, the kids like, oh, oh, you don't like it? Let me make you something
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
No, what mom made, you're going to eat and you're going to like it. And that's it.
What was that's a fond memory. But do you have any other like really core memories growing up that you could share with us?
Um, uh,
Really
you
fond
know,
ones?
I, the memories I have of growing up is because I grew up poor. Okay. I lived in a garden apartment, and my mother used to call my friends and I, there was about 14 of us in this group. And my mother used to call us the League of Nations because we had everybody from all walks of life. And there's like five courtyards. And we used to go eat in everybody's house. And I used to say, it didn't make a difference whose mother it was. Hi, mom. And she goes, oh, you're hungry? Here, eat. you know and they'd all come to my house, and my mother would just say, okay, who's hungry, who wants a snack, and we'd go out, we'd play baseball, we'd go around and check out the woods and what's going on. And that was really my favorite memory,
Yes.
because life was, I guess, more simple. And it was carefree, and we didn't care about the color of your skin or what
No,
your accent was or
no.
where you came from. We just played. We played with one another.
It's a mirror image of my own upbringing, and it really just touched me because, again, you could go up and down any given street of your own street, that is, and you could have a meal with any one of the families. So I wonder what has happened with the world. Sometimes it's changed, hasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it really has. And I brought up my two boys with my wife. I don't want to leave her out
No,
because she's
no,
very
you'd be
important.
in trouble.
Um, big trouble. But I taught them with the old values.
Mm,
I taught them, you know, when when a friend of mine would see one of my boys out in wherever,
wherever.
and they said hello to them, they would always stretch their hand out, shake their hand firmly, look them in the eye, and say hello, Mister Whomever, or hello, Mrs. Whomever, and go on. I used to get phone calls all the time saying, "Look, I just met your son Matthew, and he shook my hand, looked me in the eye, and he was like an adult, and he was like 12 years old."
Yeah, two young gentlemen.
But yeah, but something, I am very proud of the way my boys grew up. They grew up very respectful,
Mm,
especially with veterans, because I'm a veteran.
of course.
Um, I that it holds a part of their heart in with them, whenever they see a veteran or anything else. And if they see somebody with a T-shirt or a hat,
Hmm.
they'll walk up to them and they'll thank them for the service.
I think it's obvious to me in terms of a service perspective what sort of legacy you're going to leave behind. But for again, for your kids, because I think they're a core of our lives, what sort of legacy do you want to leave them behind? When they think of dad,
Um,
what are they going to think about?
yeah, well, a good person willing to help. Um, you know, nothing is really too much, except when it comes to my family.
Yeah,
My family is, look, nobody touches my family. Okay.
that's
I'm
fair.
very, I'm very strict about that.
Yes, sir.
Um, but if I see somebody, by a shopping center or something, and they're collecting for whatever service, it could be the Boy Scouts
Hmm.
for all I know.
Hmm.
And even though I'm a diabetic, so I can't have like the cookies or the popcorn or whatever else that they're selling, I will just give them $5. I say, here, put this towards a donation. Somebody's going to need it,
Very kind.
and I try to act like that all throughout. Now, I'm not perfect.
No, no,
Nobody is.
nobody is.
Um, but I try as hard as I can to be that type of a person, the person that will stop for a senior citizen on the side of a road and help him across, things like that, that everybody in their fast paced hustle and bustle life wouldn't
Hmm.
think to do.
Yep.
And I would just try to think to do it.
Well, you have to be the change that you want to see in others, and I think you're a north star for many people, and it's a real credit to you. Now, let's talk
Thank you.
about you and your service. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was in the United States Air Force. I was a security policeman,
Hmm.
and I wound up being a tech sergeant. I was the law enforcement supervisor. Uh, I was in for nine years, and what culminated at the end of it was Desert Storm, where my unit picked up and went. We actually went to North Dakota. We went over to we went to Minot, North Dakota, went to Saudi Arabia because we were attached to the KC-135s.
Right.
And what that aircraft does, it refuels the jets. And the number of sorties that happens, that's the amount of missions that they're given. I think we had about 44 missions, and then we went back to North Dakota. Um, but it was all very, very interesting because I never stepped foot onto the soil of Iraq. It's okay. So I wasn't in that type of danger.
Understood. Yep.
Um, but just the fact of us picking up and going. Listen, I had just gotten out. I was in the reserves, and I picked up my phone one Friday morning
Hmm.
at work, and they said, "Is this Sergeant Foreman?" I said, "Yes, it is. This is Sergeant Baldoff. Be down at McGuire Air Force Base, oh dark 30 on Monday because you're going."
Oh,
So I had from Friday to Monday to get all my stuff together, and that was it.
that was it.
And I said, "Am I going someplace hot or cold?" And he said, I really can't tell you, but pack your swim trunks.
I
So
love it.
I said, okay, but meanwhile, I wound up going to Minot, North Dakota, where when we landed, it was minus 30 degrees.
Goodness me.
Okay.
Take your swim
And
trunks.
absolutely. And over in Saudi, it was 120 plus. So I had the best of both
I
worlds.
bet you did.
Yeah.
The thing that's always amazed me is the way that the different parts of, I guess, the military coordinate these massive movements of men and defense materiel. Um, what fascinated you the most about how it all just came together and worked?
Well, no matter what service you are in, Air Force, Marines, the Army, Navy, it doesn't make a difference. You know, the Air Force, I chose it because it spoke the biggest to me.
Mm, mm.
Also, we had something called an ASVAB test, And if you did really well on it, you can go into the Air Force or the Navy. You didn't do well on it, you went to the Marines and Army.
Grunts.
That's a whole nother story. Okay. But I went into the Air Force, and no matter where we went or how we did it, there's always such a coordination that when we got there, everything was ready. Okay. There's a saying in the military: hurry up and wait. Hurry up and get to your point so you can wait around to start it.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
That's why if I'm on time, I'm late. Okay. And I've been this way since day one of the military. If I'm early, I'm on time.
Got
And I brought my children up, and my wife, she wants to kill me sometimes,
it.
but I am constantly early.
I love it. These are very powerful insights, and I think they've got a lot to do with entrepreneurialism and business. And there are certainly some takeaways, and it makes me wonder, as we shift into the core of the call now, Michael, how was it that you actually got into networking? And I was wondering if you could just explain it for people who don't know what it means. What is networking?
Well, let's just say it started back when I was in the military.
Ah,
Listen, I was in a high enough rank where I had people who were older than I was with less stripes and people younger. So I had to learn to talk to people who were older than I was, tell them what to do, and not have them have any animosity towards me. Okay. So I started learning from there. And I say learning because all of this is communication, it's knowing how to talk to somebody. Now, I was a pizza place owner, restaurant owner, so I got to deal with my employees and then customers, how to deal with the customers, the hot-headed ones and the friendly ones.
yeah,
I went into the mortgage business. Um, and that's when it really started coming around because back in New York, I developed two networking groups, one in New York, one in Jersey, with about 30 businesses in each. And they would be weekly meetings. And I would teach them about networking, about what to do when you go to a networking event, how to act, how to follow up, what to do when you have a one-on-one uh, a sales call. How do you build that rapport? How do you and you only have seconds to minutes to do all of this. And I taught them how to do it correctly and quickly.
right. So, is this just for the sake of somebody who doesn't know, who might be listening to the call? What's the difference between pure networking, people connecting with people, and network marketing? Is there a difference, or how does that play out?
Well, yeah, well, network marketing is what it sounds like. It's marketing to the masses without building that rapport or having that one-on-one.
Right.
That networking, that communication is when you're going to that networking event, that sales person. You're going to meet somebody. When you go and you meet somebody in an office and you sit down in their office, you have about 30 seconds. You scan the office. You say, are there any pictures of children, of another adult? Is it his child, his grandchild? Is there little league plaques around? Are there major league plaques around? You're doing all this so you can talk to them on that level. There could be a guitar, there could be a piece of artwork, something, and then you ask them about it. And this is how you build a rapport when you're talking with that one person one on one. And it's really no different when you go to that networking event, okay? Because you still have to build that rapport.
Yeah, it's funny because last time I went to an event, it wasn't called a networking event, it was a marketing event. But all I remember, Michael, was people being at the ready with their business cards. And I thought, I'm being lined up here. It just felt almost incestuous. Here, you have my card, and I'll take your card. That seems to be the wrong way. Would I be right there?
Well, you're absolutely. And one thing I'll tell you, when you go to that networking event and you go with your business card in hand, order you lost automatically. Okay. You never go with your business card in hand. As a matter of fact, for a 3 or 4 hour event, I suggest not handing out more than 10 business cards. Now, let me tell you a funny story. I was sitting at a table with about 6 or 7 other people, and a gentleman comes walking up, goes, "Hey, how you doing, everybody? How you doing? Here's my card." Boom, 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 boom. "Listen, my name is Joe Schwo, and I sell this. But listen, I want to talk to each and every one of you. Can I have your business cards?" "Okay, great. Oh, that's great. Listen, I'm going to catch up with all of you in a little while, and just don't worry about it." And walks away. And everybody kind of turned their head, looked at one another with his business card in hand. And all of us, as if somebody hit a bell, we threw it out. Okay. That's the world's worst thing you can do. You hold on to that. Listen, if you do your job right, if you network right, then they will ask you for your business card.
Yes.
Okay. If not, but people who you get into a conversation with, and I really don't expect more than 10. Hand out your business card then. Treat your business card like it's money.
Yes, that's so powerful, isn't it? Because
Yes.
there's a right way, and it's I don't know the way to put it. It's kind of the difference between natural networking and artificial networking. One's more driven about being curious. Would that be fair?
Yeah, and I would stick with the natural. Listen, you have to do what feels right. If you're putting on a show and you're not being true to yourself, people can see that. People can see that, oh, you know what? This guy's full of it. He's putting on a show. Well, this guy is dealing with me one on one and he's interested. Now, let me back up a little bit. Okay. When I said I walked up to a table at a networking event, what do you think I did? I didn't do anything. I didn't say a word. I didn't hand out a business card because I walked up and I listened. I listened to the conversation. The worst thing you can do is say something. And if it's a conversation you can add some credence to, then you do that. And then you may start the conversation and then you may become a part of that conversation.
Be-
Okay.
Yep.
S- th- So, really, the worst thing you can do is start talking. And the last thing you want to do is talk about your business. Everybody thinks they're going to a networking event to spread the word that they do this and they sell this and they want to get as much business as possible. You don't go to a networking event thinking you're going to sell anything. You're going to go up when you have that first conversation with somebody and you're letting them talk and talking about themselves. You say, okay, you know what? How can I refer you? How can I be your best salesperson? And they're usually taken aback. Like, what do you like for me? I said, yeah, if I was going to go refer you, how should I refer you? Because I'm very interested in what you do, what you sell, and how can I refer somebody to you about what you do? And then he'll start talking. He'll talk and talk and talk, and all of a sudden he'll realize, like, well, I haven't even heard what you do. Well, this is what I do, and that's when you can give him the hand your business card. But you don't talk, you don't offer anything. The only thing you offer is assistance.
That's beautiful. See, it's not about being slick and it's not about going there with, an agenda. I guess the only agenda there is to be authentic, have that authenticity,
Yes,
genuinely curious and build a rapport. Would that be fair?
absolutely. Absolutely right. Now, there's a number of things you have to think about when you're trying to build that rapport. And I think of a word, form, FORM, family, occupation, recreation, and a message that you can think of, anything that you can get onto the same level. But always talk about family or always talk about his business or somebody doing his business, just all about his business, recreation. Look around. Does he ski? Does he paddleboard? Does he play sports, hardball, basketball, softball? You know what it is, and try to get onto that same level. And once you do, talk about it.
Then just talk about it,
And
isn't
then
it?
and that wall will slowly come down.
It's the fine art of communication, isn't it? It's about actually. Is there much to do with reading body language as there are as audible cues, listening to what's being
Well,
said?
everything when I speak as a keynote or a breakout session, when I'm dealing with conferences, I'm always aware of my body language because when somebody comes up to me, and there's the old typical, like, with the guys with his arms crossed like this,
Yeah.
okay, that's a dead giveaway, but it's not that easy. Okay. But you have to see, listen, you have to see whether or not when he asks you a question or she asks you a question and you're starting to answer it and his eyes begin to wander like he's thinking of the next thing he wants to ask you, then that's not being authentic. Okay. You have to be present. You have to be present. And again, when I'm giving these talks, when I'm talking during a breakout session or a keynote speech or even a workshop, one on one, I am aware of everybody's body language because people in the back may start to lose interest
Yes.
because I'm not doing something right. So I have to be aware of that and address that all on the fly.
So it's all very.
So body
It's
language, yeah, very important.
it seems all very sensory. Every single sense of the our ability, and that the idea of trusting your intuition. Do you trust yourself, and do you train others to trust themselves?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's one of the first things that I teach somebody. Humor. Okay. I always say, look, when you're giving a speech or session or a work, anything like that, if you're dealing with somebody one on one, if you're a funny person, then inject that little bit of humor. Make fun of something or somebody. But here's the thing: if you're not funny, don't do it.
Ah.
Okay, don't, because nothing is worse than trying to force out something and like people are going to look at you like, what? You don't want to force it.
No.
So I try to tell everybody, you have to use everything that's given to you, your eye, your sight, your hearing, your mannerisms, your body language, everything that you can have that edge for that client or prospective client. Use it.
So you talked about leveraging what you're good at, basically, but what are some of the things that the traps and the roadblocks that some networkers, let's call them that, fall into, and why is it that they fall short more often than not?
Well, it's really very easy because when they talk, when they speak, they start to talk or tell a story or this and that. All of a sudden, you realize that they're doing all the talking and the other people may be listening, but you have it all wrong. So, one big pitfall that you can walk into is that you talk too much. And if you or I go to a networking event, we love to talk. We could talk about ourselves, talk about anything. I'll talk about the light. Doesn't make a difference. But you can't talk that much. You have to learn to listen more than you speak.
Ah, this is that active listening thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it
Yes.
is.
It's funny. It seems to be a lost art, but I'd love if you could share with us, Michael, the seven-step path to effective networking. I think we may have touched on a few of the points, possibly.
Well, yeah, we basically we did, but this it's simple. From the very first time that you meet somebody, you look them in the eye, you shake their hand firmly, not like a dead fish. It's
A
nothing
limp
worse than
fish.
shaking a hand. Yeah, nothing worse than saying, "Oh, hello, how
Hi.
you doing?" I'm like, "Oh God,
Not
no."
again.
You know, you're looking at and say, "Hello, Mister. Hello, Mrs."
Yep.
You can't forget that courtesy and respect. And you here, one thing is, if you see a janitor walking by from a company, you give that janitor the same respect that you would the CEO. Okay, for a
Yep.
number of reasons. Number one, he's a human being. You don't know his story. You don't know why he's pushing a broom. You don't know why. You don't know what his family went through. Be nice, be courteous, be respectful, and that will go a long way. But of course, there's the other side of it saying, you know what? He could be the brother in law of the CEO.
Of course. You never know.
So you don't know what, that he may come in afterwards and say, oh, yeah, I bumped into him and he just shrugged me off.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, he was very nice to me. He was very courteous to me. He said hello to me. And that will go a long, long way.
What do they say?
Okay.
Don't knock anybody on your way up because you might meet them on your way down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And for some of us, everybody's still going up.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, there's a lot of people. And then, you get to, let's say everything went really well. Okay. It went, oh my God, this person, he wants me. Since I'm a public speaker, he wants me to come talk at this university, whatever. And how do you follow up with that person? Well, there are some very distinct lessons that you have to, very distinct things that you have to do to ensure that you're following up with that person properly. And for first thing, now with that business card, now you should have a bunch of business cards. Okay. You put the date, the name of the function, and something you spoke about. I spoke with Mr. Flynn about his son Johnny during soccer practice and he broke his leg. Just a little bit. So when you get home and you write that email that same night, don't wait 3 and 4 days. I hate that. I met somebody 3 and 4 days ago and I just got an email today. I had to really think hard who that person was. So that night, I'm going to write that email. Okay. Now, you know what I'm going to do the next morning? I'm going to write a handwritten thank you note, put my business card in it, and I'm going to say, I'm sorry about your son. You know what? But I'd love to meet you for a cup of coffee. And then leave it at that, put it in the mail it. Now, if you haven't gotten a response yet from the first email or from that handwritten note, give it about 3 days, send them a little email and say, hey, how you doing? Just checking up on you. I want to know how your son is doing. And how about that cup of coffee? I'm free next Tuesday and Wednesday. How about it?
Yeah,
And
that's not slimy or anything, is it? It's just another human being wanting to connect.
that's it. Now, I'm not doing it too much.
Hmm.
I'm not doing it too little.
Yep.
Okay. Now, here's the trick. Let's say that you still don't get a response. Okay. So now, is this a person that you really, really want or not? Make that decision. When I was in the mortgage business, I used to go after big, big realtors. And one time I just bought a shot glass, put it into a box. I sent it to her. And I said, just give me a shot.
Yeah,
And she was just like, you know what? Listen, I have my three mortgage guys, but if one of them screws up, I'm going to give you the opportunity. I said, that's all I'm asking for.
that's great.
So you have different things.
Different
And I'll tell
things.
you, and one time with a thank you note, because I used to send it to all of my realtors and everything, but I sent a thank you note to a realtor, a big time realtor, and she was so amazed that I sent her a thank you note. She sent me back a thank you note for my thank you note.
Huh?
Okay.
I love it. Talk about
Okay.
reciprocity,
Yeah, but it's not done. It's not done anymore. People forget about it.
don't they? The
And
fundamentals.
it's just it is. It's the basics, the fundamentals. And that's what I'm out trying to show everybody that what, technology is wonderful, but there's still some old ways that you should not forget about.
This has been a great call. I'm just wondering, in all of this, prior to us talking about Networking Unleashed, your wonderful book, it made me think you can't get as good at this either unless you have a lot of experience, which is often dealt through life experiences. But what about inspirational people? Who did you learn from? Who do you look to, and who makes you, think about, wow, they're excellent at this.
Well, you know what? Somebody, when I was in the mortgage business, there was a gentleman named Barry Habib, and My brother and I was in business with my brother,
Mhm.
and we walked up and he says, "Hey, the Foreman boys," and he really took what he knew and made about 8 different companies, and really just showed. But every single person that he spoke with, you thought he was your best friend. He just thought you were the best thing, and no other people, nobody else came into it. It was just you and him. And that's what I try to marvel myself as or mark myself as. I try to give everybody that same type of courtesy and respect.
Underneath the My Future Business logo, it's helpful people helping people. That's what's written underneath it. And you epitomize somebody who is doing exactly that. You have that authenticity, you're committed, you have that discipline. And the list goes on. I could pull out every phrase and word that there is that goes along with this. But, this all culminated, it resulted in this wonderful book, Networking Unleashed. At what point in time, and I guess what was the catalyst for you deciding to write this book?
Well, I've been jotting things down for years, the proper way to do something. And about 6 months ago, um, it kind of all came together, and I said, you know what? I'm putting pen to paper. My wife helped me. She's a graphic designer.
Fantastic.
Um, and so she helped me and she helped. uh, I'm really not a wordsmith, but she is. Um, so, between the two of us, we got the book done. But the book, it really, it says, you know what? From I start off with a story about two guys who've gone fishing, from the eye contact and the handshake, all the way up through the follow up to the customer service people. I do this in workshops when I say, how many salespeople do you have? 10. Well, how many people do you have that support the salespeople? How many people answer the phones? How many people talk with the people in the, that meet the
Yep.
people that come off the street?
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, the number grew from 10 to 30. I said, those are the people that I want to speak with. And it's all, I mean, really insane things and things that you learned from 100 years ago. When they pick up the phone and they smile and they smile into the phone. So what? The other person can't see me? Yes, they can.
Yep.
You can tell the difference when somebody enjoys what they're doing, smiling what they're doing, or you're just another number.
It's that
You should
intuition, isn't
always
it?
keep absolutely. And you keep a mirror, small mirror on the side of your computer. So when you pick up the phone, you look in that mirror and you smile. Say all little tricks.
The body language again. All these things are tying together. What a great call. I'm wondering. I couldn't do it myself. I've been forced to in the past before, but public speaking's never been my thing. How do you find it?
I love it. I love it. I love getting out in front of the masses. I spoke to, I think, 3 people, and I spoke to 500 people, had a room of 500. And, you know, eh, you have to decide whether or not you have to use a microphone. With 500 people, you do because
Yeah,
people in the
of
back of the
course.
room. But you talk differently, and I enjoy it so much that it really it comes out.
Yep.
And the people that were having me that scheduled me for these talks, um, they said that. They said, "You know what? We can really tell you really enjoy doing what you're doing." I said,
Becomes
"Yeah, it's
apparent.
true."
I
Yeah.
wonder, you touched on, when you start out, you start talking about stories. And it got me to thinking, what are people going to actually learn when they read this book? Could you give us a bit of an overview?
Well, it's everything that I said,
Right.
okay?
Yep.
It's kind of like a handbook of what to do and what not to do. It's You can actually pick up my book and use it as a guide from the very first, like I said, from the eye contact and handshake, all the way through to the meeting of the prospective client, to the building of the rapport, to the getting the client, to doing the follow up and how to do the follow up. It's really almost like a step. It's not really a step by step, but it is. And if you follow everything, that's what I claim. I say, look, if you give me your salespeople and follow everything in my book and let me do the workshop, I'll guarantee you your bottom line will increase next month. Now, how can I do that? How can I say that? It's very simple. If I have just one person have just one more sale than what they had the previous month, it increased their bottom line.
You're up, aren't you?
You
Yep.
know, so regardless of how much I charge to come in, that money is nothing
Yeah.
compared to the sales
Yep.
that would come in.
Well, look, if they learn the fundamentals and they do everything that they will find in Networking Unleashed, they'll be golden, as they say. So, where are they going to find this book, and what's on your website, and what's the address of your website when they want to contact you?
Okay, the address for my website is very simple, michaelaforman.com.
Too
I
easy.
kept it very simple.
Oh yes.
Okay, so michaelaforman.com.
Yep.
On there, you can access my book. You buy it through Amazon. You go to Amazon, put in Networking Unleashed, and the purple book should come up, and you should be able to get it. And really, what the owners, what the business owners have done, they've bought copies of the book before I got there to do the workshop,
That's excellent.
and they all had it. So it was kind of like they were checking me what they were
Yeah.
doing. Saying, "Yeah, but you said this in the book," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, everyone's human, okay." Um, and on there, most of all, on the bottom in the website is a contact form, and you put just your name, your email address, your phone number, and what you want. Um, Send it to me, and I will get back to you within 24 hours.
Well, look, if you're on today's call, you've enjoyed what we've talked about. We've only literally touched the surface of networking. I certainly recommend that you reach out to Michael, or just visit Amazon or the website, and you'll be getting access to that link below this post. No matter where you see it, you'll have access. It's just a one click. You'll be on Michael's website to go and get Networking Unleashed, or to, in fact, contact Michael to start working with him. And with all that being said, Michael, this has been an absolute gem of a call. Thank you so very much for joining me on the My Future Business Show today.
You're most welcome.